What's up and welcome to my final summary review of the Zephyrus M16 RTX 4070 laptop. This thing did really awesome overall. Like, I was kind of surprised actually at how great it did. There was very little weaknesses to this laptop. But we're going to get to all the pros. We're going to go all the cons. We tested all of these things in a full, like, 4-hour live stream. And there's timestamps on that live stream if you want to jump to any of these topics in more detail, but we'll also be overlaying all of the information. Now I got to give a huge shout out to Best Buy for sponsoring this episode and sending over the Sony ZV-1, the Samsung Pro Plus 512 gig micro SD card, and of course, the Zephyrus M16 that we're reviewing in today's video. It is expressly stated in the contract that I can be honest with you and list all of the pros and cons of the products that they sent over. So to test out the Sony ZV-1, I went ahead and filmed a vlog playing with my dogs and then going and getting them a special treat at a doggy bakery.
Ajiba wombat, ajiba wombat, ajiba wombat. Hi, Bobo.
Gots to love on the Boba King.
So today we're gonna go grab some special treats from the Doggy Cafe, specially baked for dogs, but they look like human food, and I think the dogs will love it. But let's find out.
Let's go. Hey, yo, I persevered and learned a lot. Trials and tribulations, daily lonely clips and taking shots.
This is the dog bakery. Ooh. You haven't taste tested them? Can I get one of those blue cupcakes? That looks very delicious. It's tempting to try it myself before I give it to the dogs. This is what the audio sounds like kind of in a busy parking lot. Let's see how good the audio quality is. I don't know. It's kind of got a busy road right next to me here, so we'll see how well it isolates the audio.
Yeah, you want this? Yeah, you want that, don't you? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ooh, don't eat it all at once.
I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the Sony ZV-1. Not only is the autofocus essentially almost perfect, you also have a touchscreen interface with very easy to access and change up the controls. Now, a lot of these cameras these days have really complex menu systems, and this one I think is more approachable, especially in the touchscreen department. Now, another nice thing about this camera is that it comes with a wind muff, and the onboard audio I felt like sounded pretty good. Now, some other nice pros for this camera is an external mic input. You also have a USB-C connector that you can use to transfer footage or charge the internal battery. You also have a mini HDMI output, which is nice on a camera this small. Now, there are 3 cons that I noticed when filming. White color balance took a moment to adjust from scene to scene, but this is expected behavior. Another con is that I wish the camera angle got a little bit wider. Sometimes it was hard to fit everything in the shot from a first-person perspective. One of the key features for the Sony ZV-1 is the ability to defocus the background with the press of a button. You just press the C1 button right next to the record button and it will enable background defocus, and you press it again and it'll bring the background into focus depending on what you want. Seems to work pretty well. Very cool. Another nice feature is that you can tap on the screen to focus on a specific point. But sometimes I noticed when I was filming that I had accidentally tapped on the screen when I didn't mean to, causing it to focus on the background. Now you can press the center menu button to cancel this, but it's something you've got to keep in mind if you're using this to vlog. I had no problems recording 4K footage with the Samsung Pro Plus SD card, and then of course editing on the Zephyrus M16 is a breeze. Now the Asus Zephyrus M16 is powered by an NVIDIA RTX 4070 graphics card, allowing you to take advantage of NVIDIA Studio and the more than 110 creative apps supported with RTX and AI acceleration. So So if you're looking for a complete vlogging setup from start to finish, the Sony ZV-1, the Samsung Pro Plus 512 gig card, plus the Zephyrus M16 makes a great overall package for creating vlog videos. Now there are links down below if you want to buy any of these products. Thanks again to Best Buy for sponsoring this video. Let's get to the rest of the review. So first of all, the unboxing experience on this is nothing too special. Pretty plain box, but you got some extra designs on it. You get a power adapter, you get some warranty cards, quick start guide, and then the laptop is wrapped in plastic with a like a cloth keyboard cover. And the laptop flex test did surprisingly good. This thing is more rigid than I expected. Across the board, it's more rigid than the Zephyrus G16 by a little bit. They have some extra supports in here. I think they did a good job designing the rubber feet to be across the entire bottom of the laptop, adding stability and rigidity to the laptop chassis. And I think it's above average in terms of flex test, especially compared to other thinner, lighter laptops that are out there. Quality control wise, we have no dead pixels. There is no backlight bleed on this unit that we have here. It's basically like perfect looking in terms of backlight bleed, which is great. Ports wise, we have a Thunderbolt 4, which is great to see. Of course, this is an Intel laptop, so we have Thunderbolt 4 support, which allows for eGPUs or Thunderbolt 4 docks. You have a USB-C port. Both the Thunderbolt 4 and USB-C allow for power delivery, which is great if you want to have a more portable power brick. The default power brick is a pretty decent size 280 watt power brick, reasonably portable, not too large, but also not super portable either. The laptop itself is fairly portable, 16 by 10 aspect ratio display, and it folds down to be fairly portable. I like the design aesthetics of this laptop, and it's got a very thin kind of civet portable package, can go into the vast majority of backpacks. Great laptop for a student. Especially anyone that's going to do video editing, graphics design stuff, because of the high quality display that this laptop has. Also, should have excellent battery life on this laptop as well. And Windows Hello on this laptop is going to allow you to turn this laptop on, log into it very quickly without having to type a password in over and over again. So great for opening up, taking notes in class or business meetings or whatever. It's also a fairly understated design, so it's good for business or students without looking kind of like a crazy gamer laptop in any way. So that's nice as well. Now, other ports on this, there are 2 USB-As. I wish there was a total of 5 USBs, but there's only 4 total. You got a headphone port here, HDMI 2.1 for high quality external displays. There's also, of course, DisplayPort support in the USB-C, so you can use a giant monitor behind me with those ports. And then we have a micro SD card slot here as well, which can be useful for users that are going to use like a vlogging camera, or record videos with their smartphone, like an Android phone, and then plugging in that SD card directly into the SD card slot. Now, I do wish it had a full-size SD card slot. That would be better, especially for creative types out there. So there's a drawback there for the ports. There's also no Ethernet port. So if you're after an Ethernet port, you're gonna have to use a USB-C dongle or a Thunderbolt 4 docking port with a Ethernet port on it. So it's not too big of a deal, but just know you're gonna have to get another accessory in addition to the laptop to be able to access that. The BIOS has pretty minimal options. BIOS updating is done through Windows updates, which is really easy and has been very reliable for me through Asus. Now, the webcam quality was noticeably above average, good color representation, and Windows Hello logs us in fairly quickly and easily. Audio recording quality was pretty meh, so you're going to want to use an external mic if you want good quality audio recording. Keyboard on this is like a soft plasticky type of keyboard, but I like the layout, I like the functionality. There is, of course, no number pad, which is a downside if you need to do a lot of number typing. The backlight on here is an RGB backlight, but I would probably recommend using a static color like white or blue or whatever favorite color you have. And it's fairly easy to set that up in the Armory Crate application. I did show how to do that. Display on this, we tested it at about 474 nits, I believe, brightness, which is close to the 500 nits rated brightness, but it's not quite there. And I wish it tested at the full 500 nits brightness. Contrast ratio was 950:1, which is not great, not terrible. Like I said, no backlight bleed on this unit at all, but color gamut was superb. 100% of the P3 color gamut, like 97% of the Adobe color gamut, of course, tested with the Spider 5 Elite, which underestimates my color gamut compared to other color checking tools by about 7 to 8%. That's why it tested at 93%, but I view that as a 100% P3 color gamut test result. So fantastic display for editing videos, for editing text or Photoshop, whatever you want to do. And it can represent the image similar to how you would see it on a smartphone or a TV that's like a highly saturated image being represented on those final viewing devices, which is important as a content creator because that's the way most people are going to be watching your content on. Even like the cheaper smartphones have very color saturated displays these days. Now the laptop control software, which is the Armory crate from Asus, is great. It's so far it's fairly lightweight. It updates consistently. It rarely crashes on me. And I've never had a crash during my testing today. And on my past Asus laptops, it's been very reliable and easy to use. So I highly recommend it. You can easily control your fan profiles there, a lot of performance things. But if you want to change your battery conservation level so your lithium ion battery lasts longer, you have to do that in the MyAsus app. That's one downside to how Asus has laid out their apps. I think the battery conservation settings should be in Armory crate. That's one of my criticisms of the Asus software. Speakers on this were awesome. They sounded so good. They were close to the second best speakers I've ever tested. I think better than the Blade 16, not as good as the Blade 18. Blade 18 is still louder, still a little bit better in certain ways, but very clear bass, very good mids and highs. Really like the speakers on this system. That's definitely one of the things you're paying a little extra for. That and Windows Hello, the webcam, the display quality. Those are some of the key premium features that make this laptop worth the extra money compared to, say, the $1,000 Asus TUF F15 RTX 4070 that's available for sale right now. So yeah, some big differences there. Cinebench, let's see here. Fan noise testing is next. So fan noise on this, 58 decibels at max fans, 58.7 decibels, I believe. Fairly loud for max fans. There's a triple fan design in this laptop, and the internal laptop cooling system is designed really well with liquid metal, and that triple fan cooling allows the overall chassis to stay fairly cool, doesn't build up heat as long as you keep all three fans running at a reasonable pace. If you go down to silent or performance mode, expect the wrist rest and the laptop to heat up fairly warmer because you're not evacuating the air as often or as much. Now, when you go down to turbo mode, we saw 57 decibels. Performance mode was only 48 decibels, which is much quieter and a lot better balance of audio acoustics with the high quality speakers and the medium fan noise. Now, silent mode is really where it's at if you're playing a AAA game and you just want to have quiet fans and a great gaming experience. Just know that your performance in silent mode is going to be noticeably reduced compared to manual or turbo mode. So, because the power limits on the CPU and GPU are cut down quite a lot. Yeah, silent mode, we had basically 41.5 decibels, which is the same ambient room audio, which basically means the fan was completely quiet compared relative to my room noise, which is excellent. Cinebench R23, we got 19,500 for our multi-run in a row sequence. About 20,091, I think, was our highest Cinebench R23 run. So right around 20,000, but it's going to throw it down to 19.5 basically, which is good, but not nearly as high as what you're going to get in an HX CPU that's going to have more performance cores and more efficiency cores. So from a CPU performance standpoint, the i9 really is not going to perform like what you think. You think an i9 means, oh, this is going to have such good CPU performance. It's kind of a marketing gimmick. this actually is going to have worse performance than the i7HX processor, relatively speaking. So HX actually can mean more relative to performance than the i9 moniker now. So just keep that in mind. Now, gaming performance obviously was very good, but we did run into some snafus in Hogwarts. We only have 16 gigs of RAM in here. Also, only DDR5 4800 RAM is in this unit, which is obviously slower RAM. There are 2 SODIMM slots though, so you can upgrade the RAM with 2 new RAM slots, or like a you could put in like the Kingston Fury Impact RAM. I don't know what speed it's going to run at. It's obviously rated to run at fairly high speeds, but the Asus BIOS is not really going to let you overclock this with XMP or anything. So you're going to get like the default speeds most likely. There are two M.2 SSD slots in here. So if you want to upgrade your SSD, add a second one, you can do that without having to remove the existing one, which is really nice because a lot of the thinner, lighter, more portable laptops don't have that. So I gotta commend Asus on the internal build design, really cramming in all the maximum features that they can on the inside. Now, big criticism of opening the laptop. There are 7 rubber feet you have to remove in order to access screws, and there are a lot of screws on this laptop. Probably the most screws I've unscrewed from any laptop in 2023. Downside, I really don't think they need that many screws, but maybe having so many screws is how they achieved such a rigid chassis in my flex test. So it's a pro and it's a con. It's a mixed bag there. Take it or leave it. I just wish they were able to design a stiffer chassis without as many screws because it makes it pretty inconvenient to take the bottom off. Now there is a pop-up screw, which makes it easy to get the bottom of the chassis like started to prying it open. I like that. That part was opening the laptop from once you got all the screws out was super easy. Okay. Let's talk time spy. We got 12,700 in time spy, which is very good. I was, for a 4070, that is close to the best I think I've tested so far this year. And that was without any extended overclocking. With more overclocking and optimization, I think 13,000 plus is possible, which means that this has lots of graphics power, especially in such a thin laptop. Apex Legends and QHD resolution. We were doing, I think 170 on high settings. But in order to achieve that, we had to disable dynamic boost because our CPU was being choked out. Not enough CPU wattage was being pushed to the CPU to really take advantage of the maximum gaming performance. And I feel like this happened in multiple games. So realistically, your best settings in this laptop are probably going to be you going into manual mode and then under the GPU settings, taking that dynamic boost and reducing it down to the 5 watts. You could also disable dynamic boost probably in the NVIDIA control panel. That would be another option. But it's up to you. Depending on the game, you'll get more or less performance. Warzone 2, we did like around 95 to 110 FPS, depending on where we were. Our 1% lows were also quite good at like 70, 60, 70. Counter-Strike 2, we were doing 180 to 250 FPS range, around 200-ish on average. And with this 240 hertz display, 240 hertz resolution, or 240 hertz refresh rate on this QHD display, that means that we're getting excellent frame rates in Counter-Strike 2. And I would expect even higher FPS if you go down to lower settings, because that was on high settings. God of War, what was it, like 65 FPS? Not ideal on Ultra, but we went down to original settings and we got 100 FPS. So if you basically, because this only has an RTX 4070 and a QHD resolution display, the current generation of games are going to need some graphical tweaking because you went down to a 4070. If you want to spend a little extra money and go for the 4080 version of this laptop or 4090 version of this laptop, you will not have to tweak any of the graphics settings to get great frame rates. But because you went with a 4070, some of the games you're going to need to change the texture settings down to medium or low. We had to do that in Hogwarts and in Last of Us in order to achieve good frame rates. So the 8 gig VRAM is going to be a limiter in the newer titles for sure. And I really wish they had 12 gigs of VRAM in all of their laptops, maybe except for the 4050. That might have been okay with the 8, but that is 6. So that really NVIDIA needs to upgrade the amount of VRAM in all their laptops. But because it's a 4070, not only do you have to change textures down sometimes, you'll also have to change general game settings down from ultra down to like medium or high. And sometimes you have to turn off ray tracing if you want to have a high FPS experience. So in Cyberpunk 2077, it took turning off ray tracing to get us up to the 85, 90 FPS range, which is really where you want to be if you're going to utilize frame generation. Now, Dead Space had good FPS even on ultra settings, DLSS on quality, no frame gen. Last of Us was excellent performance in the 60 to 80 FPS range, even on ultra settings, but again, textures on medium. Starfield, ultra settings, only 45 FPS, but Starfield's going to have future optimization updates that will include DLSS frame gen built into the game. Currently, you have to use a DLSS 3 frame gen mod in order to get the FPS boost from frame gen. With frame gen, much better FPS should be expected, 70 to 90 FPS, even on ultra settings. So right now, FPS is not so good, but in the future, it definitely will be better. Or if you just mod the game to improve performance. Baldur's Gate 3 had excellent performance, even on ultra settings, except for 1% low stutters, which is going to be common on nearly all gaming laptops, just because Baldur's Gate 3 is turn-based, and it's like you end your turn, and then the computer has to calculate what it's going to do, and every time almost it's going to stutter. And plus the camera is jumping as it does that. So very common to have 1% low stutters in Baldur's Gate 3. That said, the 1% low stutters were kind of bad, but we were averaging like 120, 140 FPS when we were not jumping between the characters. So overall, Baldur's Gate 3 performance, absolutely excellent, even on max settings at QHD resolution. Witcher 3, we only did what, like 65, 70 FPS on ultra with ray tracing enabled. Disabling ray tracing jumped us up to like close to the 105 range for FPS. So that's what I recommend. Witcher 3, just disable ray tracing. You'll have an excellent gaming experience, even with a 4070 at QHD resolution. So in the end, basically, this game laptop at $1949, it's a great laptop, just expensive for sure. And if you're after the best bang for the buck, definitely don't pay full price. And if you're patient, wait for it to go on sale. At least to $1,800 would be my recommendation, where it becomes a good buy. A great buy, though, would be $1,500 to $1,600 range through the rest of the year. And you're getting great value even at $1,499 because of the excellent display, the better webcam, Windows Hello, the great speakers, the great touchpad, the great cooling, quite frankly, because of the triple fan design with liquid metal. I mean, you're getting a lot of features that you don't get in those really cheap, like $1,000 or $1,200 laptops that you typically see go on sale. So I think all of those upgrades really make this worth it when it's like $1,500, $1,600, like if you have the extra money to spend. Obviously, if you're impatient, you pay full price for it. Not necessarily the greatest bang for the buck, for sure. So that's kind of the downside, is you're gonna have to be patient and wait for it to go on sale. But if you wait for it to go on sale, extremely highly recommended. And it should last a long time, assuming VRAM issues don't get out of hand in future titles. I don't think they will, but you're gonna have to turn down textures even now in certain titles anyway. So just know that going into the purchase, that you might run into that bottleneck down the road. If you want to avoid that bottleneck entirely, I recommend going for an RTX 4080 laptop instead. And if you're paying the full price of the, if you're paying $1949, then in general, I would recommend just go for one of the 4080 laptops that are on sale right now instead, which I went over in detail in the full live stream, which again is linked in the description down below. So that's it for my final summary review. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon out.